Hi folks, it is Thibaut Van Dam here with another YouTube video, and for those of you who are not familiar with my channel, I am a DIY singer-songwriter and guitar tutor based in Southeast London, and today I'm very excited to be continuing my series all about practical guitar and music theory. Specifically, I'll be continuing that sub-series all about the cage system. This is something I introduced in lesson 12, and it's a method of learning some practical open major and minor chords, but also a way to start thinking about moving chords around on the fretboard practically. And so specifically, I started by looking at the C major chord. That was the last video I made. And today I was working on my video about the A major chord. And I ran into an issue where basically I found I was spending a ton of time basically explaining kind of my finger positionings and using the names of the fingers. And I realized that actually I have a method of sort of explaining, or a system of explaining which finger goes where. And it usually just involves numbers, actually. So I know that this might sound like a mundane video, but actually it is an important video to make nevertheless. And so because of that, I will be making this video. It will be a brief video, I will say. And I will be including an illustration from a book I'm working on all about music theory, but it's about visual depictions of music theory. So hopefully you'll find that useful as well. If this sounds interesting to you, please definitely stay tuned. Like I said, it won't be a very long video. And please consider liking the video. Please consider subscribing to the channel. It's the best way to stay up to date with what I do, basically. And it's the best way to sort of motivate me. It's a morale boost for me to keep coming back to the channel, keep making things. I actually have now 200 subscribers. So that's definitely a huge motivator right here. I feel really great that I have 200 subscribers. It was really difficult to get 200 subscribers. I did notice something else, which is for a long time I was working towards 100 subscribers just so I could change my URL. And actually YouTube now has changed the way that they construct URLs for people, which is such a bummer because I never actually ended up changing it, even though I passed that mark and there was the window. So anyway, I digress. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. Thank you to everyone that does subscribe. It still does mean a lot, and great. So the first thing I need to say is that there's a rationale for why we want to have a system for referring to our fingers. And this is because every chord we'll look at in the cage system has at least two different fretting strategies behind it. And the first will almost always be our primary approach, but also usually it's the primary approach because it's the easiest way of playing this chord outright. And so this is a D major chord, and if you ask me, how do you just play a D major chord? I would suggest this finger fretting, which I will explain for this chord anyway in a later video. But taking advantage of the cage system means basically being able to take this chord and slide it up the neck, and to take advantage of the fact that the guitar uses a nut, and if we move things proportionately, we can actually maintain the character of a chord without necessarily needing to know the components of that chord, and also all the variations of that chord. So it's a really useful tool, actually. But in order to really do the bar chord that allows us to achieve that result, we need to refret this. So if you just take a look at the shape, you'll see that in order to free up the index finger to produce the bar, I actually need to move some fingers around. And after I move those fingers around, now my index finger is free, and I can now produce a bar chord, which is achieving that cage system kind of result, which is so unique to guitar, actually. It's something that you can't do on piano. And if I just keep moving the shape up the neck, actually, this is a major chord, that's a major chord, that's a major chord, this is a major chord, but all the variations of the major chord also apply. So for instance, if I play a minor chord, I can move that around. That's a minor chord, this is a minor chord, but it all requires liberating our index finger, and that means basically knowing how to refer to our fingers. So you probably know the names of your fingers. We have our index finger, our middle finger, our ring finger, and finally our pinky. I found in England people also call this the little finger. Also some people call the index finger a pointer finger. So I don't want to have to explain each and every single name of the finger as I go through it. So moving forward, I will refer to each finger as finger 1, finger 2, finger 3, finger 4, and you can hopefully see that in the diagram that I'm providing in this video. And I just find that by referring to those fingers in that way, that I can immediately start grouping the fingers together by saying, well, to play an A major chord, you know, in our primary position, it's usually fingers 1, 2, and 3, right? 1, 2, 3. And I just wanted to add a little note about the fingers and the finger choice. Basically, we tend to use these three fingers, our fingers, index, middle, and ring, these 1, 2, 3 fingers, we tend to use them more just because they tend to be stronger and they have more dexterity, and we use them often to do things like pick things up. We tend to, even like holding a cup or something, we tend to let our kind of pinky hang out. And the thing is, actually, the more we use our pinky, the more dexterity it will acquire and the stronger it will become too. And so I think it's very important to just try using our pinky as often as we can. Not only for the bar chords, but also just to have an extra finger available to us for fretting is totally invaluable. So I guess the other thing I'll say is that in order to take full advantage of the cage system and all these chords and moving them around in the way I've just demonstrated, we will also need to cover bar chords. So I will actually make that video shortly after this one, before making my video about the A major and A minor sort of chord shapes. And this is because, actually, if you know how to make a bar chord, and if you know what a bar chord is, you can at least start to try to implement it alongside each of these caged chords, to sort of work up towards basically taking advantage of that system. So the C chord, unfortunately, is quite challenging, but like when it comes to A, if you know how to play a bar chord, you can really rinse this chord. I mean, you can play the major version, the major seventh, minor seventh, the diminished, the half diminished, the suspension 4, the suspension 2, extensions. So, I mean, there's so much you can do with a chord like that it really will help to know about how to play a bar chord, so you can then move these things around. See? And just really start not only moving things practically, but also starting to logistify and understand the theory behind each of these chords, because that's also what the cage system will teach us. So I hope you found this video informative and helpful. That just about does it for the systematized approach of referring to our fingers. This way I can go forward through the series and just say fingers 1, 2, and 3, or fingers 2, 3, 4. Oh, one last thing I could also mention is, when I refer to fingers, I usually refer to them in the order of actually how they appear on the strings, from lowest string in pitch to highest. So for example, with the D major chord, you'll see that the fingers are all sort of mixed up. So we'll have kind of finger 1, followed by finger 3, and then finger 2. So 1, 3, 2. And I'll say it that way because that way we can think about it in a progressive way. Lowest in pitch to highest. So then we think 1, 3, 2. That's sort of how I think about it. That's how I'll sort of explain it as well in the future videos. So with all that said, I hope you found this video informative and helpful. It will be a good reference video maybe for the future. And if you did like this video, please give the video a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing. And thanks for watching. I'll see you at the next one. Ciao for now.